This interview is being presented by Intimidation Clothing. Impose your will. Uncivilize. Don't talk about it. Be about it. Be a beast among men. Adrenaline Training Center. Up your game. Change the way you train. TheDailyPunch.net. Have you gotten your Daily Punch? Area 51 Fight Gear and MMA Mind Power. Late Night MMA Radio is live Monday and Thursdays, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Call into the show to win MMA merchandise. www.latenightmma.com. Join the revolution. Let's bring in Chris Cope. You there, man?
I'm here. You guys got definitely a stacked card for this radio interview.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we've been busy. I can't wait to get done to have a few brewskis.
Good deal. I feel
yeah, man. That. Okay, man. So let's just talk about your last fight with Matt Brown.
Yeah. Let's talk.
Yeah. So do you want to walk us through that fight?
Yeah, the game plan with them was basically, to strike with them and then, 30 seconds left in the round, try to shoot for the takedown. I'm not a wrestler, but Matt Brown doesn't have the best record, but the guy's beaten a lot of good guys. He's a hell of a fighter, and he's good.
Yeah.
The problem is I got caught with that overhand right, and the thing is that I don't know if I got arrogant or what, but my corner told me, like, hey, he's getting tired. That round, you might have lost it, but it's getting close. He's getting tired, and then Appreciate felt like, hey, I think I got this. And then out of nowhere, that overhand right or right cross hit behind my ear. And, whenever a punch like that happens, your equilibrium is just completely thrown off. And then once that happened, I'm used to fighters kind of like being egotistical and like they land a big shot like that, then to be like kind of like gloat a little bit. But he went in for the kill right off the bat. And, he got it. I mean, he hit with that hook, and then I wasn't knocked out. I just basically, my feet, it's exactly what happened against Shane Mills. My feet were completely, not underneath me, and it is what it is. It happened, and, I've gotten a lot better because of it, and that's why The Ultimate Fighter is a gift, but at the same time it's a curse because, the level of competition that I was fighting in the house is nowhere near the level of competition that I've started fighting when I was actually in the UFC.
Right.
And I got a lot better, as, with each fight and everything else. But, I was fighting, C plus, B minus fighters, in that house. And then all of a sudden I get to the actual, I get to the actual UFC. And, these guys were, A, B level fighters. And, Matt Brown's had 10 fights in the UFC. He's had as many fights in the UFC as I've had in my career.
Sure.
And he's definitely a decorated veteran, and the guy and if you take a look at all of his losses, he's been submitted every single time. And the guy doesn't have a bad ground game, but nobody has outstruck him. Not even Chris Lytle didn't even outstrike him. Like, Chris Lytle basically took him down and choked him out, and there's not one person that I can think about that actually outstruck him. Like, every single loss that he's had, he's got caught in that guillotine choke.
Yeah, we had him on the show a few weeks back, and he said that he didn't know that he had hurt you, except for the fact the wooing had stopped.
Yeah, he seems like a pretty dry to the point kind of guy, and my ass off to him, man. He beat me. He remains in the UFC, and he's got the Karate Kid up next, and I think the guy Stephen Thompson, he's a guy I know him, but I think he might think that he's going to go through Matt Brown a little easier than what he expected. I think Matt Brown is definitely going to shock a lot of people with this fight that he's got with Stephen Thompson coming up.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Okay, man, last time we had you on the show was right before Christmas, and I think when we were talking to you, you were at Target. Where are you at tonight?
I just got done with work, and I'm driving, I studied for the LSAT, so I basically got done doing that, and I'm driving home to hang it up.
Okay, good stuff, man. So
Yeah.
where'd you go from here? Any idea when you'll get back into the cage?
Yeah, but basically what the game plan is, I've talked to my manager already, we're going to do like 3 small shows right off the bat, and then kind of pitch me to a medium grade show like Titan MMA Fighting or something like that. Go in there, get the belt, and then basically, my whole thing is, when I start fighting, it all revolves around 3 goals, and that's fight for the UFC, win a belt at a big organization, and then fight in Japan. So, I mean, basically, being let go from the UFC, I'm not going to say, I mean, it sounds kind of messed up, but in a way, it's allowed me more of a fast-track route to get my last 2 goals.
For sure, man.
It's going to be basically, King of the Cage, Gladiator Challenge, smaller shows, less experienced opponents, build up a couple wins, and then basically they're going to pitch me to one of the medium-grade shows, go in there, get the belt. And to be honest with you, icing on the cake, if Joe Silva called me up and said, hey, we got to fight for UFC in Japan, that was my 3rd goal, and I went in there and, I opened a can of wolf ass on somebody, and that's how I closed out my career, that'd be icing on the cake. And, I mean, a lot of guys have said, like, well, I was on the show and everything else, like, nobody gave me a chance in hell that I was going to do anything, and look what I accomplished. I mean, I basically got called into the house, and then all of a sudden, I made it to semifinals. I got caught by Ramsey, unfortunately. It seems like he's overhand right for some stupid reasons what I get caught with, because Ramsey caught me with it, Che Mills caught me with it, and Matt Brown caught me with it, like all 3 of them. So that's all we're working now in training is just, not getting hit with that overhand right and just being very cautious about it. But, just in my brief career, I've been on the Ultimate Fighter. I've fought in the UFC. I fought for Strikeforce. I mean, that's a lot of stuff. That's more than what most people will ever do in their careers. And, I've been able to do it thus far with only the amount of experience that I've got. And what a lot of people don't realize is I wasn't so much an inexperienced fighter that for a long time, I turned pro and I couldn't find a fight for like 2 years. I couldn't find a fight, and finally I got one. But for the most part, I was fighting like once a year, and that's why I wasn't able to that's why I wasn't able to really put it together. But, when I remember I used to train with Dominic Cruz and Eric Del Fiero and, Brandon Vera and those guys, and that became a frustrating problem because they kept lining the fights up, and I wasn't getting opponents. Guys were getting injured last second. Guys were pulling out last second. I don't know if it's because of the intimidating nickname that I got or what, but
right.
For some reason, things weren't coming together. And, I tried out for the Ultimate Fighter 3 times. The 4th time I made it on. And, a lot of guys never even get to do that. So I'm going to get those last 2 goals. And I've given my word to everybody that it's going to happen. And I'm just basically back in the gym, and that's all I care about. And people keep asking me, like, well, aren't you upset that you're not with the UFC anymore? Aren't you this? And I'm like, I've done what I've needed to do with the UFC. My whole thing was fight for the UFC once, and when, after me and Chuck fought, and I beat Chuck, and Joe Rogan came to interview me, I almost said, hey, guys, goal number 1 down, 2 and 3 are up. I almost called it there, but I decided to stay because my manager told me to do it, and I'm glad I did because I really felt that after that win against Chuck O'Neal, like I felt like I was kind of high on my horse, and I felt like I really shocked people. But what I didn't realize is, and there's no offense to Chuck because we're both friends, but
sure,
the level of striking that Matt Brown and Shane Mills had compared to Chuck, it's night and day, And what I had to realize was that, you basically come off that show, it's sink or swim, unless you win it. If you win it, then they kind of build you up a little bit because they want the guy that wins the Ultimate Fighter to kind of have, a good following and stuff. But I'm glad that everything happened the way it's happened and that it went down the way it went down because I've learned so much from both of those losses. I don't look at it as losses. I look at it like I just got their outcomes and results that I got, and I've gotten a lot better because of it, Sometimes sometimes the guy goes into a fight and they barely win, but they fought a horrible fight, and they don't really work on anything because like they just think, hey, I won, so I don't need to work on anything. But there's other guys out there that go out there and they lose, and they like there's so much to work on, and they get so much better from those fights. You know, like somebody that comes to mind is Michael Bisping. You know, he was high on his horse for a while, and then Dan Henderson, you know, gave him a knockout of his century, basically.
Right.
And then Bisping came back from that, like, in the biggest way ever. Like, Bisping's become a way better fighter after that loss to Dan Henderson. I mean, he's gone through a lot of good guys.
Yeah, Bisping's really improved. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, and you see guys, it happens all the time, and there's other guys that they were untouchable for the longest time, and then they get caught, and then all of a sudden, they don't come back from it like they should have. You know, you see that with Chuck Liddell. You see it with, you know, another guy that it happened to was Fedor. You know.
Sure. Yeah.
And they're just not the same fighters because for so long they went unbeaten, and then I don't know what happened to them. But then there's other guys that they basically, you know, they win one, lose one, win one, lose one. But then there's one of those losses where they just learn so much from it. And there's plenty of guys in the UFC that they leave the UFC, they get a couple of wins and everything else, they come back and they go on a tear. Like look at Chris Lytle, you know.
Yeah, Ed Herman's also on a roll.
Yeah, Ed Herman too, and that guy didn't fight for the longest time.
Yeah, he was out for 2 years.
Yeah, jeez, 2 years. That's insane.
Yeah.